Hello, everybody. I'm Andrew Edwards here at Stewarts Chapel Baptist Church. We are now on episode 2 of this podcast we're starting. We're going to start working our way through some different ministries and committees and things that are overly relevant at the time. And this episode 2, I've got the pleasure of having Mr. Bryant Arnaud with us, and thank you for being on with us.
It's a pleasure.
So I want to start out a little bit with some background on you, your family, how you were led here, kind of just some things of what you want to touch.
Well, we moved here from Clarksville, Tennessee, back around January of 2022, if I got the years correct. Moved over here. We searched around for several churches and made our way to Stewarts Chapel, and we came here a couple times, and we really felt led by the Lord to come here to this church.
A little bit about you've got not a small family, not a huge family.
Not a huge in-between. Got 4 kids total.
Mm-hmm.
Got one's on her own. Got one 17, one that's 14, and another one's on the tail end that she's 12 years old.
So we is moving through, going to get a little more deeper into what's going on. So we recently had our pastor retire in December, and obviously from that we have formed a pastor search committee. And if you want to go into some detail of why, how, and kind of the way that got started.
Well, we when our pastor retired, when he retired, the deacon committee got together and they got a list of names together. Got a call from one of the deacons one night, and he asked if I was willing to serve on the pastor search committee. And spent a couple days praying about that. Felt led by the Lord to go ahead and serve in that capacity.
So you have a unique position within the committee. Explain a little bit about how that come to pass and how you got that spot. We'll put it that way.
Well, the chairman of the committee had basically said, "Hey, why don't you do it?" That's kind of how we did it, right?
Yeah. They were like, "Bryant, will you do it?" And we were like, everybody standing like, that sounds perfect. So yeah, that's how we got. So let's get into a little bit more of what the purpose of the committee is, what the role of it, what they do, kind of the steps we've taken, and then some that will come later.
Yeah, well, we initially started after the committee was formed. We got together. We set up all the different roles in the committee. We didn't really have an election per se. We just everyone, say, hey, would you fill this role type situation? And then once we got that established, we did some training, had the Southern Baptist Convention come in and do some training for us for the search committee process. As part of that, we after the training, we got our processes and procedures established for the committee of what we're going to follow. Then along with that, then we established guidelines that we're going to follow and established criteria we're going to use in order to find our new pastor.
Okay, so as far as that goes, you've got different roles that we're all kind of taking in that. If you can expand just a little bit on what some of those are.
So we've got the chairman role, which is myself, the co-chair, which is you. Then we've got the 2 ladies on the committee. We've got Mary Jo and Amy. They're dividing the recorder, and I really don't remember all the position names, really, to be frank with you. But everybody has a role, and we're doing different things. We've got 2 deacons on the committee. Those guys have been our go-betweens whenever we have questions for the deacons. Right. Then they'll go to the deacons and get those answers for us that we need, or whatever is needed throughout the church. We've had a lot of people have been helping us throughout this process to find our new pastor.
So during this process, I have lost count, to be honest with you, of how many we've had apply. I don't know if you've kept count of that or not.
I didn't keep count. I actually was supposed to go in there and find out the total number because we got the established questions. We're gonna our pre-question questions.
All right. So
I'd say at least over 90 candidates.
Yeah. Of those, what about locations of where they've been? Are they strictly local?
Wow. It's been we've had a couple of local guys right here in the North Alabama area. The Hazel Green, Harvest, Tony, We've had an application all the way from Canada, Alberta, Canada, if I remember correct. I think it was
I
Alberta.
think that's right.
We've had Kansas. We've had Washington, up in Maine, Florida, Louisiana, my home state. Just all over. So there's been a variety of candidates that have applied throughout different locales have applied for the position.
So we did several things with the church survey and some of that, but we've developed some criteria that we're looking for in the pastor to come. There's some of those that we can cover here just so if somebody has the question, they'll know.
Yeah, so we wanted a pastor to come in that had some experience. So we were looking at least a minimum of 3 years as a senior pastor, position. So I had that experience to be able to lead a congregation. I'm sure there are some men out there that have applied in the process, and through that process, and unfortunately we eliminate them. They were good candidates, but they just didn't meet that minimal criteria that we're looking for.
So far, what has been for you specifically some of the biggest challenges and then blessings so far with being picked for this committee?
Challenges, I would say, is patience. I guess I would like to say, like to commend the deacon committee because they have not pressured us. They have been wanting to be informed and want to know what's going on, so we keep them abreast of what we're doing, how the process is going, but they haven't pressured us. So I'd say, in that line would be the patience of that we need in order to get through this process and not rush through it, and trust in God to lead us in it, to select the candidate and for His timing.
All right. So as far as the church family goes, there's just some things that they may not realize that really help us moving forward. And what are some of those things that they can stay engaged? We attempt to give information out and some things they can be doing. If you can touch a little bit on those things.
Doing the biggest thing that our congregation can do is pray. Pray for us. I mean, the last thing we want is we don't want to be hindered by having open sin in our lives, in our congregation, because we think that can be a hindrance in the process itself. So, if I would encourage you, if you know you're in open sin in this congregation, you need to repent and get things straight.
Right.
We need to make sure that our relationship with God is in line. I know we sin, we fall short, but at the same time, in the committee meetings, that's what we do. We ask the question, are we openly sinning? Just we want to make sure we stay in God's will. We want to make sure our relationship is right with the Lord so that we can hear God and as He leads us in this process.
I know for me personally, going through that's been a challenge, something we had to do right at the beginning when they approached us asking us to be part of the committee. Not saying that from before then I was okay with being how I was, whatever, but it really does. It kind of gives you a perspective that you've got to do a major heart check and be focused on what we should be focused on and trusting in that God's going to guide us. So that being said, that kind of leads into the next question: spiritual growth. How much has this process allowed or spurred or got you to dig deeper into things and become more grown, if that's the right word?
Well, the word you use is trust. Trust. Sorry, I can't speak. Trust. That we have to trust God in His timing, and that He'll bring the man that's going to fill this pulpit for us. That's all we can do is just trust in God. If we rely on God, then we can trust in the fact that we have the man that God's calling to this position.
I got you. So as far as personally within the group, the committee, one of the things that the guy that came in and gave us the training, if you will, the night that we met with him, he highly encouraged, he didn't say it, but camaraderie between the group. So how has that played out among us? How have we as seven, a group of seven, become closer that you can feel from your side of what we the honesty we can speak, all of that. How can you speak to any of that?
We've gotten closer, and we've been able to trust in each other a little more. Spending time together in the meetings and praying together allows us to grow closer to one another. We get to know each other a little better, more comfortable talking to one another. I mean, being new to the community, of course, has been 3 years now, but we're still fairly new, so we don't have those relationships that you guys that have been here all your lives have with everyone in the congregation. But getting together that way, we grow spiritually together, getting to learn one another in the, I guess I'd say, kind of learn about each other more intimately, getting to know one another's family. Some of the family members that didn't really know. I never really talked to them before.
Right.
Specific Randy Flynn. I didn't. It wasn't until we had the get together at your house that I actually sat down and talked with Randy. So
and we've tried to do that a couple of times away from the search, what we're being led to do, just more of getting to know each other, because the more we know each other, the better we know each other's heart and know which direction we're going, right? So by having those moments, and there's been some times where we've had discussion that hasn't always been together, an agreement. I mean, that's going to happen, but that is what grows our relationship closer. The disagreements and being able to come back together after that, be like, here's where I come from, here's where you're coming from, I understand, and not going away from there with a tainted attitude and turn around that's, to me, in this church in particular, what builds those relationships stronger.
And the cool thing about it, when we do disagree on some of the things on the candidates that we look at, we're able to talk through that together.
Yeah.
It doesn't cause friction in the group. It allows us to grow together, like you said, and trust in each other's judgment, I should say.
And that, to me, is I've been asked 1 or 2 times, well, how did you know who needed to be on the committee? Well, we're seeing fruit of that by that, I believe, right now. So statistically, to kind of sum up, I know there's some impatientness and some things like that. Statistically, how long should it take to find a new pastor?
So by the training, not my experience,
Right.
the Josh had come and he said it's 1 month per year that the pastor had served before. So we're looking at a time frame of 11 to 12 months, so a full year of the process. On average, it's not saying that hey, by this time we're going to have a pastor. God could be working in the congregation and in our lives as a congregation that the timing may not be right. We have to be willing to accept that if that's the way God leads us. It may be a month from now we find a pastor.
Right. But and right now we're halfway of that.
Yeah.
So where we are today in the steps that we've taken, let's kind of go back a little bit in the initial process. The first things we did to get prepared to let the U.S., the world basically is what it went out to, that we're looking for a pastor.
So it took us, we took about 2.5 months to actually get all the parameters established of what we were going to go by. We spent time to discuss all the process and all that. And as we said earlier, the qualifications we're looking for. And then after that, now that we've gotten past that and we've got those parameters established, going through the resumes, reviewing them, making sure they meet the criteria established. Now we're to the point we've gotten to where we've gotten to know some of the theology of some. Once they got past our resume stage, then we were interested in going farther with them, that they met the criteria. Then we've sent out a list of questions for them to answer. And we've had anywhere from those 25 questions we've been sending out where we've gotten 2 pages of answers, and we've had 11 pages of answers. So each one is different.
Yeah.
So that determines how much time we spend with each candidate and how much we get to know about their theology at the same time.
Which all of them, to me, in that process, have pretty well revealed where they stand in a lot of cases, and that's here and there, whatever it is. But they pretty much have given that out. So now we're in that stage where we've had however many candidates we've had. So we're kind of in in between. where we're still posted, but we are taking some steps further with a few. If you can go into that a little
So
bit.
we this week we're gonna, for lack of a better term, we'll divvy out responsibilities to each. Have some references sent out to each of the members in the committee, and have them reach out to some of the references that were provided. Just get to know of these pastors that we're working on a short list. I'll say that of what we have that we feel God leading, past just the resume stage with these guys, that we want to get to know more about them, and just slowly go through the process, meticulously go through our process.
So that being said, after this, what is the timeline, if there is one, if we can be something on paper, what would be our next steps?
So as next steps after this, once we go through the references, if as long as we don't find any bad references there, then we want to keep going. Then we do have more questions later on. We have another set that we're going to allow 25 questions again for them to select their own questions.
Yep.
That'll give us more idea of what their theology and where they stand on different aspects when it comes to being minister at the church. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. But after that, so then we'll get into the stages of. We're starting to watch some of the sermons on these the handful of guys where we're at right now. Not to saying these are the final guys,
right.
But right now we're down. We've got where we're proceeding. We've got 4 guys. I don't think we're divulging information other than right now we're down to 4 guys where
right.
we think we can keep going in the process. So references, sermon watching, and then after that process, then we're going to look at going. I see a physical sermon by these pastors and get to know them and see them in a live setting.
Okay. And after that will be basically interview. And then as long as everyone is in unison, we will set up a time for them to come in, and there'll be that weekend of a trial sermon. Has more than just that sermon in it.
Yes.
So we can talk about that for a minute.
So they have basically an introduction meeting. We have with the pastor search committee as well as the deacon body, and that gives them time to get to know the pastor as well that we feel God is leading to the church and calling to the church, I should say. And so they'll give them time with it as the deacons and leaders in the church to be able to get to know the pastor, spend some time with them and ask questions of their own if they'd like. So as they do that, and they'll, I guess, get buy-in to that candidate, then they can come into the next day. The plan is the following day they'll do the intro sermon or whatever. I can't remember.
Right. Trial.
They'll do the trial sermon, and once after the trial sermon's done, then that's when we're going to look to the congregation. We'll actually have the pastor, and if he has a family, then they'll obviously exit from the building.
Yeah.
And then we'll continue by going on with the vote and to vote the congregation. So all the members of the church will have a vote.
Right.
Members of the church.
Yep.
So which will follow along with our Constitution
Right.
on who's able to vote in that situation.
So we don't know when that's going to be. We have no clue. All of that is in God's hands, and we're fully trusting Him in this process. So, question that I want to establish with all of these that we do in kind of an ending thing is asking whoever's in that seat. There may be multiple sitting there. I don't know how this is all going to go. But why Stewarts Chapel for you and your family? I know that's a little bit on the spot. So.
Yeah, essentially, we feel this is where God has led us to. In the opening, I stated we moved here from Clarksville. We were part of Hilldale Baptist Church over there. It was a large church. They had everything and anything you wanted as part of the church body. When we moved here, we told the kids we don't know what kind of church we're going to be in. We don't know if it's a big church, a small church. It's actually a big church in a small community,
Yeah.
if you ask me.
Yeah.
They have a lot of the same type programs all the kids had at the bigger church we previously attended. And just the people in general, the community have taken us in as their own. You know, they've accepted us from the start. So that's what we've always appreciated about being here at Stewarts Chapel.
So, in closing, will any request that you have for somebody that may be watching for the search committee or anything the like, whatever it may be, any requests, closing comments, things that we may have missed you wanted to touch, any of that?
Prayer. Pray for us. Pray for God's guidance, that as we go through this process, that we don't have a preconceived notion of who this person is. We don't have favoritism who we think should be the person here, but that we trust that in the process that we have established, that God will lead us to the man that he wants to serve at our church.
And again, this is Mr. Bryant Arnaud. I'm Andrew Edwards here at Stewarts Chapel Baptist Church. You can find us at stewartschapel.com, find out any information you want to know. Visit that, and we'll see you next time.